How are we doing there, boys and girls? Welcome back to another episode of Dyson's Sphere program. Today we're going to continue roughly a little bit from where we left off. I've been doing some work off camera. If we quickly zoom out, you'll see that I've started to put down the infrastructure of our bus-based super material highway. This is a larger task than you first think, simply because of the amount of transport belts that it takes, but actually the greater limitation is just how fast our little robot dude is right now. He's not super speedy. You only have, I believe it's 4 little drones that can go and place things out for you right now, and it's taking some time, but I've been doing that off camera just so that we've got our belt sort of starting to be up and running. I've also gone back to our setup that we made for the foundation, and I've just decided, well, we've got stone coming in here and we've got steel being made here. Any excess materials that aren't going into the foundation, hey, we might as well plug it into the bus. And this is exactly how I've done it, and this was really the thing that sort of drove me forward with trying to get the bus up and running already. So you can, as you can see, when you're bringing materials in, you bring them in at a slightly elevated height. How's a good angle to see this? We're relatively close. Let's go and have a look ourselves. You can see when you're bringing materials in onto the bus. Ooh, excellent solar. We'll talk about that in a second. When you bring materials in on the bus, if you bring them up at one level, thank you. Bring them up at one level above, then you can slap them into the back of one of these splitters and it will go down, and it doesn't get in the way of the rest of the bus, which is going to be very helpful eventually, because whilst this bus is only a few tiles wide right now, it's going to end up being pretty wide. In fact, it's going to end up being wide enough that this is going to be in the way. I can already see that we're going to have to move this eventually, but that's not going to be for a while, so we'll worry about that when it happens. But today what we want to talk about is where we're going next. We have blue science up and running, and because of blue science being up and running, we can drive forward and pick up some technologies that are useful to us. You'll have just seen there on screen we unlocked solar, and this is going to be the main topic of conversation for today. That solar panels, whilst they're a little bit expensive to make and they don't produce much electricity, if you start getting them prepared and getting them made early on, you can actually end up with quite a lot of these before you realise. So we want to get ourselves whatever it is we need to unlock these solar panels, and what you may notice is one material we need is silicon. Silicon is the green coloured plates you can see there. There's copper, there's silicon, and then there's 4 processing chips. But our planet doesn't naturally, and nor will your planet, naturally have any silicon veins on it. So how do we fix this problem? Well, luckily at the beginning of the game you can sort of forcibly do it with stone, and that's what we're going to set up now. If we go into the components, you can see that there's the silicon ore here. Silicon ore can be obtained by smelting together 10 pieces of stone, and it will produce 1 piece of silicon out the end. It takes 10 seconds to do. It's really quite a lengthy process, but it is going to be the only way that we can generate this silicon early days. Now, not only is the silicon going to go into solar panels, it's also going to go into our more advanced processing chips. The circuit boards are just the start for these. We go into processors, and then we go into super processors, and it just keeps going. So we're going to need a lot of silicon eventually, and this is going to be the way that we're going to get it. So first and foremost, we need to mine ourselves up some stone. There was a convenient patch just back here where we'd been building already, so it seems somewhat sensible to tap this up and do a little bit of smelting here. So let's get some miners. Right, so let's check the status of this. Let's see what's happening here. We've got inserters missing all over the place. That's our first problem. Now with inserters done, these are working along. It's like I said, it's relatively slow, but it is going to be at this point. Long term, the reason I haven't scaled this beyond what is running right now is because there'll come a point where we actually can get steel from other planet. The silicon from other planets. That's going to be our main source of silicon eventually, but we just need this little setup up and running to give us some silicon to sort of kickstart our base in that regard. So this is now working through, should be kicking out some silicon blocks. Yes, lovely stuff. So now we've got the high purity silicon, and we can put this straight onto our bus. So what I've done, let's talk about the bus for a minute. There is already a whole bunch of rows that you can see, and you'll see I've left a few gaps. This is because we're going to have iron being the first one, followed by copper. These next two are going to be silicon and titanium. Now titanium we can't get for quite a while, but we will be using titanium in enough of a quantity, I believe, to make it quite prioritized on the belt. Then we have stone coming in, regular stone. I've not turned the stone into bricks and then put bricks on the bus. The reason being there's also glass. Glass is an item that needs just regular stone. So I either had the choice of putting stone bricks on the bus and putting glass on the bus and sort of smelting glass and stone bricks elsewhere, or just putting regular stone on the bus, and then whenever we need either stone bricks or glass, we can do a little bit of smelting just to fit the needs of that mini factory at the time. I thought that was probably more sensible. May I regret that decision eventually? Possibly, but we'll see how it goes. And then of course we've got a few more belts missing, which are going to be for, what are they going to be for? We're going to be putting magnets on one belt, and we're going to be putting graphite on another belt. Graphite we've already made out of coal. That's going to be going on the bus. So before long, we're actually going to have our first 8 belts, all minus the titanium. We'll have our first 7 belts all up and running, and that will get us to a position where we can start really driving forward. So let's hook this up onto the bus itself, and I'll show you exactly how I do it, so that we don't hit into the main ones themselves. If you press up, you'll see it raises up a level, and then we can hop and skip over the other ones quite easily. So let's get this in place. We're going to need to run our belt for what is going to be silicon over this way, and now I'll show you what we do with the splitters to get it onto the bus. So what we need to do is we're using these splitters. We're using the ones that are both pointing in the same direction, and that's quite important, as it actually is I can't find the right buttons. It's actually quite space saving, and that's kind of what we're going for with this. What I'm likely going to need to do is place down some foundations, because the splitter's going to be on the water. So let's just put some foundation down there. Let's drop a splitter in, rotate it, make sure we get it aligned, and it can squeeze in there. We see we've got one belt coming in at a higher point. We can hook that one into the top. If when you're trying to use these splitters, it sort of tries to, go in a direction you're not expecting it to, if you press up, it will fix itself. That's I'm slowly but surely working out the quirks with the belt system that we have in this. And also let's think to the fact that we eventually want these belts to go all the way around the globe. So when you put a splitter in, if you're bringing materials in, what you can do is if you click on the splitter itself, you'll see that these two blue dots. These are saying, asking you whether you want input priority on them. What we always want input priority is going to be on the bottom one. That's going to mean that any materials that are already on the belt will get preference to continue forward rather than putting new materials on the belt. So this means that we'll only smelt whatever we need to keep the belt nice and full, which is exactly what we want out of this. So with silicon now on the bus, we can run that out, and of course we're going to crash straight into a power pole. Let's get rid of that power pole just for now. There'll be plenty of space for power poles in between. Run that forward. Now the advantage of having this one gap between the belts is exactly this, that you can squeeze in those power poles when you need them. And that's just so that we don't accidentally make mistakes. Run this one forward as well so that we can see exactly how it works. Well, it's B. I keep pressing escape when I meant to press B. But there we go. So we've got silicon, albeit in very small amounts currently, but the whole point is this will continue to slowly process silicon. You can scale this up a little bit more if you wish. This is you could probably scale this quite a bit further, to be honest, if you wanted to, but I know you don't need huge amounts of silicon at this point. You can always come and add a few extra to the end of this if you really want to at a later date. But there we go, there's silicon on the bus. Let me spend a bit of time putting some more transport belts down and we'll hop to the next topic. So let's look at the first thing that we're going to actually put on the belt. And now that we've got that silicon, there seems to be no real reason not to look at solar panels. Yes, let's get some solar panels. Let's make that the monumental first thing ever to go on the bus. So let's look at what a solar panel actually needs. It's going to need some copper. Well, we've got some copper, that's handy. It's going to need some silicon bars. Well, we've just made some silicon bars, no problem there. And it's also going to need some circuit boards. Now circuit boards need more copper and iron. So in material terms, we're actually looking at some iron, some copper and some silicon. So we need one feed off each of these first three belts. Firstly, we're going to need to make a few circuit boards, but eventually we'll be able to pump those into an assembly machine. So let's get our materials in. This will give you a good idea of exactly how you can take materials off the bus in a somewhat organized, neat and tidy fashion. So if you take away 3, you can put a splitter in and it will fit nicely. Let's make sure we remember to hook it back up. Now hopefully they'll implement something so that we can skip the point of having to delete first. But if we go one out and then come down, there we go, there's our iron. There's a nice split of iron coming off. Now you'll see I've put some foundation down here. This is going to be what I'm going to consider like my do not build on path. I'm gonna have this little bit of a buffer between the belts and before we start building anything, just as an absolute fail safe that if something horrible goes wrong and we need to do some belt spaghetti at some point, then we've got a little bit of room to work with. But there's going to be our copper. We're going to need silicon as well, so we'll take some silicon. Now if I measure this out right, we should be able to get silicon coming in right next door to it. If we put it there. Now I appreciate that it's going to take a bit of time to get the knack of running these belts, but trust me, once you get it, it's beautiful. There's a run for our silicon. Now the third and final one, which I think is going to squeeze in right here. Now what you can also do, which is pretty clever, is you don't necessarily have to go in and come out on this side. You can go in and come out backwards, which is one of the things I love about these little splitters. Just like such. Come on, Mr. Robot, out the way. You're causing problems. And then we go down. Bingo. Lovely stuff. So we'll have our silicon coming in, our iron coming in, and our copper coming in. So the first thing we worked out that we're going to need to do with this is we're going to need to make those circuit boards. Now, circuit boards is something that I've thought about this to whether I put them on the belt or not, and they're so easy to make. They need a little bit of copper and a little bit of iron. It seems there is a compression element of that. If you take iron and copper, you take 3 items to make 2 items. There is a compression there, which means that you may wish to put them on the belt. But for me personally, I think that they're so simple to make, it doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. We can very quickly and easily, the crafting speed of these is literally every 1 second you get 2 of the things. They craft really quickly. It shouldn't really be much of an issue, at least in my mind, to just kind of craft these as and when you need them. You might have a few more factories, 1 extra step each time you need them, but it's a pretty quick and easy step when we think about it. So circuits coming in here, we're only going to need the 1 factory to make them. So what we can probably do is actually, can we go straight between these 2? Bingo, we can. So we can go straight from the circuit machine straight into our solar panel machine. We can take the we'll use, where possible, we'll just use the fast inserters we have available to us. It's kind of the reason that we make them. So we're going to need some iron and some copper in there to make the circuits, and then we're going to need some of the, in fact we don't need the iron anymore, so we can trim the iron down. Now some of you will get annoyed that I leave this little bit here, but well, it's fine. It's fine. 1 in there, 1 in there. There we go. And now what I'm going to do with these is I'm not going to put the solar panels on the bus, but what I will do is I'll just drop them straight into a box. Because solar panels are not something that you need to actually craft. Where are my boxes? There are the boxes. Solar panels are not something you need to craft for any other building or any science or anything like that. They are literally just for you to plonk down for power, so it makes no real reason to do anything much more fancy than this, than just put them in a box. We're only going to get 1 of these literally every 5 seconds, so that's fine. Let's put a limit on the amount of them that we produce, because we don't want to make millions of them at this point. We want to just be able to come back, pick up a stack of them, and then go slap them down when we're running slightly low on power. And we're going to need some power. Oh, power is one thing I'd not integrated into the bus in any way, shape or form, but also is another good reason to have that little gap there. So with a power pole there and a power pole there, we should get power throughout all of those. And if I actually run this into maybe we'll have a run of power poles running all the way down the side of our bus as well, so we can draw power off nicely. But give me 2 minutes, I'll hook that up, and then we'll get our first solar panels. Alright, so hopefully now we should have some circuit boards up and running. They're doing what they need to do quite nicely. Then we have some assembly machines working away on the solar panels, and we should by now start to see our first few solar panels coming through. Yes, lovely, excellent stuff. Now I believe these stack to 50. If I'm wrong on that, then well, I'll find out eventually, won't I? But I think these stack to 50. So what we can do is you can be pretty liberal with how you slap these down. It doesn't really matter. You don't need to make any pretty patterns or anything with them if you don't want to. Just be aware that you cannot solely rely on your solar panels, because they will only work for half of the day. So make sure that you're also keeping up with your regular coal-based, or in this case graphite-based power as well. So then, boys and girls, I'll leave it there for this episode. I hope those little updates and hints and tips were useful to you. If you're enjoying this video series, make sure to give it a like. Subscribe if you're new around here. There's plenty of new faces due to the fact that we've recently started playing this game. So yeah, hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying, and guys, I'll catch you next time. Peace.